Hello everyone, this is the 6th MetaNet ICU monthly meeting. We shall be starting with Lorian, who will be talking about CentB, adoption and the latest on CentB. Over to you.
Thanks. So I can begin. Great. Yeah, thank you very much for letting me take part. Love what you guys are doing, and I see there's a lot of people I recognize in the list, and it's nice to be able to speak to you. Yeah, so, you know, we've been busy. We're very quiet on social media. I'm sure everybody knows that we're not exactly the noisiest company. I think, you know, when it comes to social media, I've always been a little bit behind the scenes sort of person. But, you know, I follow a lot of what's going on, and it's very exciting. So it's great to be able to share with you guys what I'm doing now. So we've got quite an ambitious sort of set of things that we've been trying to deliver on. You know, we've been very focused on the whole money aspect of Bitcoin. That's something that's been driving me personally for years and years now. And when it comes to the country I live in, South Africa, and the countries around, you know, money has always been something that was just crying out for change and crying out for reform. And, you know, Bitcoin was always that hope, you know, for 10 years now that Bitcoin can really make a big difference here. So, you know, we've been focused very much on the money aspect. Of course, you know, what's happening with MetaNet and so on, you know, every day I see something new that's going on in the space, and it's just incredibly exciting. And it also gives me a lot of ideas about the future of CentB. You know, not perhaps just a money company, but, you know, all the different things that MetaNet can give. Really starts expanding my mind. So I think, you know, the years that are ahead of us, this is going to be a very exciting space for all of us for all sorts of reasons. But of course, you know, money for us is the primary focus. And so we've been trying to, from the very beginning, build out a Bitcoin payment ecosystem, or a money ecosystem, because the work I was doing years ago in Bitcoin, it always required that people understood Bitcoin and had access to Bitcoin. And I know, you know, a lot of us are always thinking about the onboarding problem. How do we get people into this space so we can actually start delivering all these incredible projects and incredible ideas around Bitcoin as a protocol and as a framework for the new future? So, you know, onboarding people is very much part of what we are thinking about a lot. You know, we are just at the moment, the product we have available to the world is the CentB wallet, but that's really just the sort of the core of what we've been thinking about and working on. And we have a lot of other products that are ongoing, and some of them are quite advanced now. And what I want to tell you about today is the onboarding issue that we've been trying to deal with. So this is going to be specifically focused around how to get people into the Bitcoin ecosystem. Now, if you have seen any of my talks before, if you saw the CoinGeek talks or something like that, you know, we spoke about the voucher system that we think is going to be a way for people to easily acquire Bitcoin. Obviously, you know, right now, if you want to buy Bitcoin, you have to use exchanges and all sorts of funny things, and that's very complicated. And you know, I always thought that if that's what we have to depend on, then it's going to be a very difficult thing to try and bring people into this ecosystem. But we've got now, and I'm going to give you guys a scoop. We haven't announced this publicly yet, but we actually have our voucher system live here in South Africa. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tell you about it, and also the significance of it, and also the impact that it will make, and also the far-reaching scale that we've managed to reach in terms of people being able to actually now acquire Bitcoin SV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly share my presentation I have, or I like to always do screen sharing. Let me just do my desktop, and then I'm going to give you a little picture of where we are going and what we have got, and the things that we're going to be doing to make this now very accessible. I think I can see. Can you guys see my screen with all the videos on the side? Let me just see if I can get rid of that. I think if I go here.
Yeah, it records with all the videos on the side. So if you're
Hide thumbnail. Right. This is what I want to do. Okay, so let me quickly just tell you what SendBee Wallet has at the moment. Now, for most of you who aren't here, this is only restricted to South Africans at the moment. I wanted to show you the process that we have in Wallet to be able to purchase Bitcoin, but then I'm going to give you the picture of actually what that looks like in real life. So, and I'm also going to touch on some of the points that that are very important now when it comes to Bitcoin, trying to not just create a product, but also to create a product that complies with whatever the rules are. Obviously we need to make sure that whatever regulators and so on are happy with the products that we're developing. So this is now what we've managed to create that fits in exactly correctly with the current regulations. And so we are now able to have this product live in the market, and we don't not have to worry about regulators coming and stamping us down. So the first most important thing here is now when you are talking about onboarding people into Bitcoin or people exiting out of Bitcoin, those are the on and off ramps where people will take fiat and they're going to now buy Bitcoin. And if they want to sell it, then they're going to take their Bitcoin, they're going to sell it. And those are the places that require some sort of a regulatory touch point or that we're going to now have to consider. So what we have is, and this is going to be unavoidable, I think that any company, any Bitcoin company that thinks they're not going to be able to apply some sort of know your customer rule or something like that are going to find difficulties further along. So what we have in the wallet right now is a very, very basic KYC system. Now, we try to work through with our regulators what is the barest minimum amount of information that is required for a company to legitimately provide Bitcoin services to customers. And so what we have here is when wanting to purchase Bitcoin, and I'm going to show you the whole process, we now require some information from our customers. This is because they're going to be using fiat to be able to purchase Bitcoin, which means it has a regulatory aspect to it. So in Wallet right now, what you would do is you're going to add a profile, and we have name, surname, and what we have is we've got ID numbers here in South Africa, but that it could be any identification number, passport number, something like that. And as soon as you do this, as soon as you get this information, you've now already complied with a very important a requirement around knowing our customers. So we've got this entry form, and as soon as that happens, what we then do is we go and do name scanning and so on. So that's another requirement. We have to go and check that the ID number isn't linked to some terrorist, or that the person isn't dead or something like that. And also the name scan, we have to do a name check, which does these very broad general name checking systems to see that that name hasn't been linked to, again, a terrorist or something like that. So we've got that in our wallet. So very important. As soon as we're doing the on and off ramps, the onboarding, we're going to have to know something about our customers. This is screenshots from my wallet that I took this morning. So another thing is that we now have to put in limits. So it's not that just once you've KYC'd somebody, once you know who they are, that they can now have free reign and just acquire as much Bitcoin as they like. Unfortunately, that's not how regulators see it. They want to know that there are some sort of limits enforced. So what we do is we have a daily limit and a monthly limit. Now, these limits can change depending on how much information we have of our customers. So in this case, what I have is I've got name, surname, and an ID number or passport number, which means here in South Africa, and every country is different, but it's essentially the same thing. We have a limit in this case of 3,000 Rand a day, which is about $250, and a monthly limit of 10,000 Rand. And also what we're doing is we're just specifying at this stage a fixed load fee. We're going to see how this fee changes, but the fee is dependent on the retail and so on, and I'll talk a bit more about that. So this is what it looks like when you create a voucher in SendBee. All you're doing is you're creating a barcode, and this is very interesting because And most countries have this. If you've ever gone into a grocery store or something like that, and there's a scanner there, and there's some sort of digital goods service provider like a telco, airtime minutes or something like that, what they do is they have a standard voucher, a barcode system. And what we've done is we've now integrated into a voucher company partner called PayAt. And what they do is they have a very wide retail footprint. And all they do is they just facilitate payments between service providers and the retailer, which means that they don't know what they're selling, and they don't know who who the people are who are buying things. All they know is that they are now facilitating some kind of digital payment from a service provider, and in this case it's Sentby, and a retailer. And they have the relationship with all the retailers, and they have this voucher system, this scanning system in place. Now, as soon as you do that, as soon as you can partner with a voucher provider or something like that, what you've really done is you've now opened up every retailer that supports this voucher system to be able to sell Bitcoin without having the retailer to even know that they're doing that. And I'm going to show you, Angus filmed Justine, one of our marketing people here, who actually went and bought Bitcoin. Now you're going to see what the process feels like. And then what happens is, as soon as you pay the hand over the cash, or you make the payment, what happens is we just get a payment advice transaction from the voucher provider, and that means we know that 100 Rand was paid for, this is the user, pay Bitcoin, a Bitcoin amount to that user. And this is actually working today. And then what happens is, in your wallet, you're going to get some notifications. You're going to get your Bitcoin receive notification, and you're going to get your voucher payment receive notification. And that's kind of what it looks like. It gives you the voucher number and the amount of Bitcoin that you received. So this is now actually live in South Africa right now. What we're doing is we're filming some sort of mini documentaries about real people, mother, a cross-border emitter, a student, a scholar, actually now using this and talking about how easy it is to now be able to have a digital payment method, be able to acquire Bitcoin in a very easy way. And we're going to be releasing those stories before the CoinGeek conference. And so you're going to see what it's like for people to actually be able to purchase these things. But let me now tell you about, our footprint. Because this is the most remarkable thing that we've managed to achieve now. So we now are live in all of South Africa's largest retail outlets. And so I'm going to show you some of them. One of them is called Pick n Pay. And this is basically the largest retailer in Southern Africa. What they have is they've got malls, they've got strip malls, they've got whole locations all over the place. I mean, every single street corner in South Africa just about has a Pick n Pay. They sell liquor, so they've got a specialized liquor store. They do clothing. They're basically everywhere. They've also got some high-end retail outlets as well. They're sort of a middle-tier retailer, so they're not high-end, not low-end. They sort of sit in the middle. But what's nice as well is that they've got, a lot of the petrol stations or gas stations. What they do is they have now got little express stores at these petrol stations around the country. So that means, you could actually go and just using Pick n Pay, be able to now buy Bitcoin directly over the counter with cash or with credit card or whatever it is, across thousands of locations in South Africa. But it doesn't end there. I mean, we've got every large retailer, all the largest retailers, and when I say large, I mean not just store size, but footprint wise. We've got every single one of these major retailers now being able to vend Bitcoin, for people to be able to purchase Bitcoin. So it's Checkers, we've got ShopRite, Ackermans is a sort of low-end clothing store. We've got these what are called PEP stores. PEP stores are these sort of lower-end retail stores, but also widespread across Southern Africa. And they actually appear in some very sort of remote places around the country. You can go to some little village, somewhere in the hills, and there's a PEP store. And if that PEP store, if this one looks closed at the moment, but you can go in there and you can actually buy Bitcoin, and they don't know that they're selling you Bitcoin. They just think that you're paying some voucher but meanwhile, what's happening is you're actually doing a transaction with Bitcoin. So it's actually amazing what we've managed to achieve across this country. Also, Builders Warehouse is one of the largest hardware stores, hardware retail chains. So we found the other day that you can actually go to Builders Warehouse and buy Bitcoin there too. So we've got plenty of these retailers out there that really cover every inch of the country. So we think what we've done now is probably a world first, certainly in the BSV community. Where now Bitcoin, you can actually purchase Bitcoin at any retail store, any town, any place in South Africa. So it's really remarkable what we managed to achieve here. And these are just some more of the retailer footprints that we have. Game as well as a very large sort of Walmart-sized type of a retailer. Also, what we realized is that one of South Africa's largest banks, Absa Bank, also you're able to now go and they don't even know this, but you are able to now purchase Bitcoin from the bank, because they also allow people to buy or at least pay bills using the voucher system that we've now integrated into SendBee. So you can go to a bank in South Africa, Absa Bank, which is everywhere again. It's the largest bank, so it has the largest footprint, and be able to buy Bitcoin from these guys. So we're very excited about this. And, I think that once we make all this public, I think it's really going to shock people probably, that Bitcoin can become so readily available across the country. Now, I've been talking about large retailers, but, we've got in South Africa, and I'm sure this is similar to across the continent, is we have these shops called spaza shops. And a spaza shop just means it's like a little informal shop, made out of sometimes just pieces of corrugated iron stuck together. But these spaza shops now, they actually also have some service providers providing point of sale systems to them, kiosks, because very often what happens is people now out in the more rural parts of South Africa, what they will want to do is they'll want to go and buy airtime, for example, airtime just being minutes for cell phone minutes. And so there's been some very enterprising companies who are now supplying these little spaza shops with very cheap points of sale, but also little kiosks, so it's quite easy for people to come and buy mobile data, mobile airtime, and so on. And what we did was we integrated into them. They're called Flash, and these guys also allow people to purchase Bitcoin through their kiosk. But again, they don't know that they're selling Bitcoin. They just think they're selling a digital voucher. And now, because of this, is that, we don't just have a footprint in towns. We've got footprint, right around the country in the most rural locations. These are just some of the guys. But it's sometimes amazing, where you can go in Southern Africa to the most rural, most remote places, and you can take your SendBee wallet and you can say, hi, I would like to buy some Bitcoin. Of course, they're not going to know what you're talking about, but you can go there, show your SendBee wallet barcode voucher that you've just created, and they'll scan it, you hand over the cash, and boom, you suddenly now have Bitcoin on your phone anyway. So this is going to be, I think, something that really, really is going to make a huge impact in terms of how easy it is to onboard people into the Bitcoin space. Now, one of the payment systems we have here is a mobile payment system called SnapScan. And if you ever are in South Africa, you'll find these all over the place. Every restaurant, every shop just about has these these mobile payments. You can also now pay for your voucher through mobile payments as well. So we've and everybody uses them. Anybody can have access to these things. So the remarkable thing now again is that we think that we finally have cracked the first problem, how to now get Bitcoin into the hands of people, and so that they can now be able to do all these wonderful things, like use money button or whatever it is. So this is Justine. She went down to, I don't know what store this was. Angus just filmed this. And it just shows you the sort of process. You can see Justine's got her Centbee wallet out there. And this guy doesn't know that he's selling Bitcoin. Scans the wallet. She wants $100. I hope you guys can see this. And he sees on the screen Centbee, and he hands her a slip. And I want to show you what that slip looks like, or a similar slip looks like. Basically, this is what the slip is that you'll get, your receipt that you'll get from the retailer. So in this case, it was a Dion Wired receipt. And what we have is we've got the account number being the voucher code that is generated by the Centbee wallet. So what we do is we create this ID in Centbee on our system. We now have linked it to you. You can also see that it says on the slip that says Centbee as an institution. And then over here, this was Robert. He just misspelled his name on his KYC. But what happened was, now we've got a link to Robert. We know that he's bought 100 Rand worth of this voucher. And what we're now going to do is we're going to go and buy 100 Rands worth of Bitcoin for Robert, and we're going to go and send it to his phone. And this works. The only delay in this really is the delay between the retailer and the voucher provider, because as soon as the voucher provider gives us the payment advice, meaning we've got the money, we just immediately send the Bitcoin. So depending on which store you're in or whatever, it can be quite instant. That little barcode can suddenly turn to paid, and you can have your Bitcoin. So it's a really, really, really cool way of being able to buy Bitcoin anywhere. I mean, you can be in the city, you can be in a mall, or you can be at a gas station, driving through the country, or you can be at a spaza shop in a township or a shanty town, and you are able to now buy Bitcoin with cash, with credit cards, with SnapScan payment systems, whatever. So that's kind of, I think, just what I wanted to share with you. I hope that you think that's fairly cool, because I certainly do. Let me just stop the sharing.
Cool. I'll just ask a question from the chat, from Tones. Can the payment be reversed?
So what happens is when the person scans, gets the barcode scanned, then we get a request notification from the voucher provider, which says this person wants to be able to buy some Bitcoin. And what we do at that point is we check the KYC, the limits, and so on. And if the person wants to now make a payment for something that's above their limit, the person at the till scanning it will get an error message or something saying, sorry, this person can't buy. And at that point, the teller can reverse the transaction. So what is called is an authorization. And before the money is actually handed over to the teller, we can reverse the authorization, just say we don't want to use the voucher. But as soon as the cash is handed over, that's it. Because the cash is now handed over, the Bitcoin has arrived in the wallet, and we can't reverse that payment. We can't take the Bitcoin out of your wallet, it's yours, and the person can't get their cash back from the teller. So what a customer will have to do is, if they really want their money back, is I guess they'll have to contact us and ask for support. But this is normal with digital goods, really. If you buy a digital good, it's non-reversible. So we're just following the same sort of pattern.
Right. Another question from Marky Mark. Any plans to expand to other countries, Europe, US?
Yeah, certainly. Absolutely. We're actually, we're looking at voucher providers around the world. It's super easy to integrate into them, because this is what they do. The voucher providers, their whole business model is linking service providers like digital goods providers like us with retailers. That's their business model. So it's not difficult to go and do that. The only issue that we find is finding an exchange with liquidity on it. Because what we do is we don't like to hold float in crypto. We are holding float at the moment because, we have issues down here with BSV exchanges. We've only got Bitcoin Cash and BTC exchanges, really. So it's difficult for us to acquire BSV very easily, although there is a new exchange that's opened up. But that's really what it comes down to, is trying to find an exchange that has BSV liquidity. And that's going to be hopefully not a problem, for very long.
Right, I have another question here again from Tones. Is there a simpler flavour of KYC if only a very limited amount is involved, like $100 a week or some other smaller cut-off?
Okay, so the barest minimum really is a mobile number. And that's why we always, we went in with SentB thinking we're going to require a mobile number because, we could see where regulators were going, that they are all going to require wallet providers, any Bitcoin service provider, to know their customers. So we thought that would be the first level of knowing who our customers were, the mobile number. But that unfortunately isn't sufficient because mobile numbers, even though in many countries, if you get a mobile number, and you usually have to submit some sort of information when you get your SIM. But it's funny, payment regulators and mobile telco regulators don't seem to ever communicate or talk. So even though if I know who my customer is through their mobile number, it's not good enough. I have to submit information other than the mobile number. I have to submit extra information. So unfortunately, regulators, they are pretty, serious about some of the basic requirements. And what we want to do is we don't want to, we're actually self-regulating at the moment because there are no regulations enforced around cryptocurrency companies. But we can see where this is going. We can see that regulators are most probably going to start coming up with either new regulations or regulating crypto companies according to regulations that other financial companies are obligated to follow. So what we're doing is we're just seeing what is the barest minimum. And what we've realized with other payment companies is that the barest minimum for the levels that we have set is that you have to provide your name, surname, and some kind of ID number. And that's in fact where we have generated our thresholds, our limits from. Our other companies that are financial companies, those are the limits that they have. So, we're just going to follow what everybody else is doing in terms of the traditional payment system and companies. And we hope that when the regulators eventually catch up, that's how they will regulate us as well.
I have another question here from Tones again. Must they pay with cash then, or can credit cards be used?
You can use credit cards, you can use cash, you can use debit cards, you can use the mobile payments, the methods that we have here, SnapScan, Zapper, those are mobile payment systems. So any system that the retailer accepts for payment.
I did have another two more questions, but you've just answered them, which was, is there also a way to pay from your phone as well? And are KYC requirements similar in other countries? I did have a question myself. I think I might ask you that one privately later. It's about the ID system looks really cool. Very impressed. Very looking forward to seeing how that evolves and develops. I'm hoping that we see it in other countries soon. That was it. That was my question. If other people are interested in getting it, in helping you get it to other countries, what should they do? How can they get hold of you? And what can they do towards this end?
Yeah, so it's really easy. Every person here, whatever country you're living in, if you go to your local grocery store or whatever it is, you will probably find that there is a way for people to buy digital goods, some kind of vouchering system in place where people can buy minutes for their mobiles or something like that. Every retailer now is geared up to provide those value-added services and to deliver digital goods. That means that they have now integrated a voucher partner, if not one, multiple. So we would love to be able to find those. We are looking at in Colombia at the moment, but if you find the name of that company, then you totally let us know, and we will get hold of them and so on. And I think also a very important thing is that within the country there is an exchange that allows people to purchase BSV with local fiat, because we need to do that in that country. And if you have a business where you can do that, you can source BSV, then that'd be great. Then we can certainly partner with you. But we're definitely going to be going through, and we have a very strong Africa focus, and we're going to be going through all the countries now and finding those particular voucher partners and integrating into them, and definitely bringing Bitcoin to the world.
Brilliant. Brilliant. There's no more questions at the moment in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions? Raise your hand or ask in chat. I think everyone's been quite impressed and blown away actually by the slides. Everyone was quite surprised, and I think regulators are going to well, obviously they're already impressed, but I think in the other countries are going to be impressed, because they don't seem to have any idea how you can actually tie identification into wallets. And basically, like, wallets aren't just A to B, as we've been saying, as you've said many times. They are, they can be many other things as well, and you're showing a brilliant case example of that. And I think as well, it's such an early days system, and that in the future you've got so much room to build forward and upwards with that. So yeah, really looking forward to see that, more of that. I do have another question. Are you working on a point of, well, yeah, this is a kind of point of sale. Well, the question is, are you working on a point of sale as well for businesses to accept Bitcoin? So,
yes, we are. There's many aspects to that. One of them was a BIP70 payment point of sale that we were working, which we actually have. But based on the discussions that we had at the InChain CoinGeek Wallet Workshop in London a few weeks ago, everyone was very interested in trying to figure out how to make a better BIP70, and the ideas that are coming out of that, and guys like Shadows and Ryan X, everybody's sort of figuring that out. We're definitely going to take the learnings from that and implement it into our BIP70 POS. But that actually is just a small aspect of what it is that we're having to do, because we don't want to, we're not going to feel that we've been successful if we just create a point of sale that requires a tablet or something. Trying to create a point of sale system and get it into a retailer is very difficult. They've got their own systems, their own IT, and so on. So, we've been trying to figure out how to integrate Bitcoin directly into the existing payment infrastructure that they have, the rails and so on. So that is ongoing, and that requires a lot of R&D, a lot of discussions with merchant integrators and so on. We've had quite a few fruitful discussions there. So we want to make it that retailers, again, in the same way that retailers now don't know that they're selling Bitcoin, we want to make them not know that they're receiving Bitcoin as payment. And to do that, just in the same way, we didn't go to those retailers and say, hey, we've got a new product, it's Bitcoin. All that has to happen is you have to scan this barcode and you have to push this button, then you can sell Bitcoin. If we had gone in that way, we would never have been successful. I mean, now we have every inch of the country covered. We would have had maybe a few little mom and pop, pilots running here. In the same way, if we want to make an impact on retail in terms of payments, we have to have the same approach. So that's what we've been trying to do, is find that way of integrating Bitcoin into their systems without them even knowing it. And if we do that, then we'll have, we can have that same footprint again, the whole country being able to accept Bitcoin without any of them having to do anything different. So that's the work that has been ongoing. And we hope that we can deliver some real results on that. But again, it's not as easy as just going in, having a workshop, and then delivering a set of tooling. It actually has to be something that goes into the heart of the existing retail point of sale system and trying to reimagine it. So it is very difficult, but we do have our tablet POS that's going to be probably revised again once we get the new spec for BIP 70 plus, and then we're going to integrate that aspect into it. Also, I wanted to just add, going back to the KYC stuff, Bitcoiners have always been, this whole idea of being able to transact anonymously and nobody knows what I'm doing. And, that was definitely the narrative in Bitcoin for many, many years, that people, as soon as they had to provide some personal information, we found that with our wallet, because as soon as somebody tries to register on Centbee, they have to provide their mobile number. That's a big roadblock for especially people who've been in the Bitcoin land for a while, and they've become kind of cultured into thinking that they must never be forced, certainly not forced, but coerced into sharing personal information with the service provider. And that's unfortunately or fortunately not actually how the real world works. We are going to be using systems and wallet providers and payment systems and so on that are provided by companies, and that are going to add great value. But we're going to have to realize that we're going to have to give up some information to be able to do that. It's just not a realistic world to think that we are always going to be able to download an app, create a seed, transact with Bitcoin, and that's it. We never have to reveal our what we're doing. But we're never going to find that the right sort of companies are going to be. We're not going to have the right companies developing the right sort of products unless they ask for personal information. It's just the way things are. All wallets are going to have to, whether they like it or not, comply with some know your customer rule, unless it is just an open source piece of software that the developers don't want to make a business of. So we have to get over this idea that we are going to be able to be transacting in a world without ever having to reveal personal information. If we want to have a world where we can pay for our groceries with Bitcoin, and where we can buy Bitcoin, we can use Bitcoin all the time, that is living in a financial system. And if you're in a typical sort of country, you're going to have people regulators and so on, who want to know information about what you're doing. Now, that's not going to limit your freedom, I don't believe. I think that it's not about limiting freedom, but it's working within a system. And we all live in the world. We all live in cities. We all have jobs, and we have to work within the system. So we have to realize that we're going to have to follow the rules, and sharing of personal information like your name and so on is just going to become a fact of life. So we're not going to be quibbling about that. We're going straight in there. And by doing this, we are seeing a lot of success because of it. So, we don't have any issue with our regulators right now. We don't have any issues with the banks. We don't have any issue with the central bank. They like what they see. They are allowing us to flourish and to build all these products, and that's because we are giving them the assurance that we are now able to follow the guidelines and the rules that are in place at the moment. And that is something we should all have. We should all, even if we don't like the system, we should at least sort of follow the rules enough so that the regulators and everybody who wants to run our fund at least can have that assurance that it's not all chaos out there. And that's how progress moves along. That's how we move in this space. So that's an important thing. When it comes to sharing information, you're going to have to do it. and we just have to deal
I
with
am
it.
going to add in that people have often got the anonymous thing wrong. They've always said, oh, it must be anonymous. It's pseudonymous. And that, yes, there is sharing of information, but you can still retain privacy in a mass system. A system at scale, you can retain privacy. As a user, you can constantly generate addresses. And when Bitcoin is being used en masse and the MetaNet is working, en masse, businesses and whatnot, as an end user of billions of times so many transactions happening per day, you have privacy. But as Lauren is saying, yes, you will still have to submit various identification if you wish to actually trade. And it is transparent. And, you won't be treated badly because you will be treated better because businesses, it's also transparent on the business side as well. So they will treat you better as well.
Yeah, and all companies have that that obligation for privacy. There's GDPR and so on. And just like in any system, especially free market, if I now abuse my rights over the information that you've given me, your rights, if I abuse your rights, then you're not going to use my service because now I'm selling your details to advertisers or whatever. So, this is going to be how it is. If I make sure that I keep your information private and I don't sell it to advertisers or do whatever people do with information, then I will be able to create that consumer confidence and trust as a business. And that's important for me. I want to compete. I want to make sure that I provide the best value. And as a business who knows now something about you, I'm going to make sure that that trust relationship between you and me is not broken. And again, that's just how business works.
There's, I'm just going to raise one last point. We're going to move over to Ryan in a minute, but just to enhance what Laurian's saying, you have all these altcoins out there with anonymous stuff forced into them, like Monero and various other things, or at least they're trying. And the problems when people actually buy these coins and transactions go wrong, say like ATMs sometimes have problems with this, which I do know of. It's more of an issue. When they can actually see the transactions, the customer service can actually sort it out. You can say, look, there it is right there. Or they can say, oh, no, it's our fault, and then sort it out. But when you have anonymous transactions, the customer service, they can't help you. Generally, the customer has to take the loss. So, yeah, it's quite harsh. Anyway, unless, Laurian, do you have any more to share with us?
No, but definitely, except for the fact, if you do find a wallet, a digital voucher provider system, wherever you are, totally let me know, and I'll be happy to look into it. I definitely want people to be able to buy Bitcoin easily using this method. Yeah.
All the people listening, you can find Laurian on Twitter or at the MetaNet.ICU. I shall leave contact information on this video as well. If I don't, please leave a comment and make sure I do. Ryan, are you with us? Okay, I don't think Ryan, oh wait, I might actually have to unmute him. That might help. Right, unmuted. Ryan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Okay, over to Ryan. Thank you very much.
Okay, so today I'll talk about a few different subjects, primarily this documentation stuff that we started doing. So this started because it became clear, first of all, we needed more documentation for MoneyButton itself, but it also became clear that there was no really good source of information about Bitcoin generally, either at a technical level or in any other way, because I can't point people to many of the other sources that I used to be able to point people to. So things like Bitcoin.org or the Bitcoin Wiki, things like that are not useful anymore because of they just don't have accurate information about Bitcoin. So basically, we needed some type of overall documentation for what is Bitcoin and how everything works and how everything fits together and all that type of thing, in addition to MoneyButton. So we're just putting everything into one giant documentation page. We're also maintaining this library called BSV, which I think I mentioned on some previous discussion here that I wrote a large fraction of that library, which is basically why we are maintaining this. This goes back to 2014, and the library is originally, it's basically a fork of Bitcore that I worked on when I was at BitPay, and it got forked to create Bitcore libcache, and it's forked again to create BSV. It's a JavaScript library. So anyway, we're basically documenting that, and so almost every single day now we're creating videos and articles about all these things. So a brief overview of sort of what we've already done are things like all the really, really basic technical things, including big numbers and elliptic curves. So you can understand, you know, what is the underlying mathematics that's used in Bitcoin. We have basic information on hash functions, base 58. So that's all the technical preliminaries. We have information on keys and signatures. What are private keys, public keys, addresses? What are hierarchical deterministic keys? So things like, did you know you can derive an address from, you know, you can have someone's BIP32 extended public key and derive new addresses from that, which is useful for services. We covered ECDSA, the signature algorithm used in Bitcoin. We covered one way to sign data that isn't a Bitcoin transaction called Bitcoin signed messages, and a number of different ways to format signatures. So these things will show up here in the coming months as we roll out features related to signing data that goes on the blockchain, because not everything that you sign is necessarily the transaction itself. Maybe you're signing stuff that's used, or signing some of the data inside of an app return. So all this information will be relevant there. We're now starting to cover transactions. So we had this video the other day on just an overview of all of the data structures inside of a block, including transactions. So what are inputs, outputs, what is script, and so on. Probably one of the next ones we'll do is a general overview of script, which is, as far as I'm aware, actually never happened. I'm not really aware of a good explanation of script. And we'll cover everything else related to transactions and blocks. And then we'll move on to general information about Bitcoin that is not just for building applications, but for building a business. So things related to the economics or the law of Bitcoin. And so these are things where I'm not such an expert, so I can talk about it a little bit, but I won't be able to give 30 videos or something like that. So hopefully we'll have some invited speakers. So we'll have people who know a little bit more about economics and a little bit more about law come in and talk. So if anybody happens to believe they are an expert and would like to talk about something like that, please just let me know, and we'll have a series of invited speakers fill in the rest of that information. And the goal here is, and then of course we'll talk about MoneyButton itself. So probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll start doing things like having more demonstrations, like you know, example apps and tutorials and things like that to show people how to use MoneyButton. So the theme is basically giving people real information about not just building an app, but building a business. And then of course, inside MoneyButton, we've already solved half of these problems so that you can just plug MoneyButton into your website or your app or whatever and use that without having to reinvent everything yourself. Okay, so that's basically it for the documentation. Does anybody have any comments or questions about any of the documentation that we're doing? Jonathan says, thank you, was binge watching today. You're welcome. Okay, I don't detect any comments or questions, so let me kind of move on here. We'll have, so the first invited speaker is going to be Daniel Krawitz. So there's a book called The Handicapped Principle, which Daniel recommended to me recently. And I'd recommend that everybody read this book. So Daniel will come in and talk about the Handicapped Principle. And I think it'll be next Friday, unless something goes wrong with the timing. But I think next Friday he'll be the first invited speaker. So we'll probably have a live stream and everything so that you know, people can watch it and ask questions and things like that. And so he'll talk about that. We'll announce it so that you can read the book in advance. And I would recommend everybody read it because it's very relevant to Bitcoin. I wrote a little blog post about it, about how relevant it is. It's extremely relevant to Bitcoin. So it's all about this idea that animals and organisms of various sorts give these costly signals where they have to do something that's unusually costly, and it comes at a giant cost to the animal. But in doing so, they give an accurate signal about something, either inside their species or to other species and so on. And it's a lot like mining is why it's interesting. And it's also related to a lot of other things inside and outside of Bitcoin. So it's just a very interesting book, and it's a very interesting idea in biology. So he'll talk about that. Okay, any comments or questions about that, or I will move on to the next subject. Misa says, I would be willing to talk about economics. Yes, so we can talk and be in touch about that on Slack. Please just contact me, or I'll forget about it after this talk. So just send me a message or something and on Slack, and we can see if that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was I uploaded a huge amount of data to the blockchain. So I've been taking photos and uploading data, and so I uploaded, I think, probably at least 400 megabytes worth of data in the last 2 days to the blockchain. So I noticed some funny comments as I was doing this, because I didn't tell anyone as I was doing it, and people would say, huh, that's interesting, look at that, there's a 20 megabyte block, or huh, and Neil, I don't know if he's on this right now, but Neil said, huh, the blocks are kind of chunky today. This was 2 days ago. Well, this was why, because I'm sitting there uploading giant photo after giant photo from just, at first I just did this as a test from, I took photos when I was in London and Edinburgh recently and uploaded those photos. And then I realized that basically I did this partially just for fun, but also partially to just test what is it like to upload a huge amount of data. And there are issues, of course, like when other people have done this, they'll encounter things like this, the too long mempool error that people get all the time. And the too long mempool error is basically, if you have, first of all, if you're simply creating transactions and you broadcast transaction after transaction after transaction that are all confirmed, you can only do 25 of them in a chain before you run into a limit in the node software related to child pays for parents. Child pays for parent, there is a scaling limitation in the software. So you can only do 25 in a row that are unconfirmed. And actually, it's worse than that. You can actually only do one if it's a large amount of data. So there's another limit in there that says something like, okay, it's up to 25 transactions, or it's up to something like 100 kilobytes in data. So people would basically run into this all the time when they're uploading lots of data. So this is not trivial to fix. I could try to explain some of it if people are interested, but mostly it's a node software thing. So they are very aware of this. People like Shatters and Daniel Connolly are aware of this and working on it. And I think they said they have more than one person working on it full time right now. So hopefully they'll fix that. In the meantime, there are all sorts of things we can do sort of wallet side to mitigate this. So the best thing is to simply split your UTXOs. So what this means is, instead of spending the same unconfirmed transaction over and over again, you have a huge number of confirmed transactions that you're spending. So when people deposit to Money Button, you get an address and you send money there. If you do that, that means you have one UTXO. And if you then start spending money, you're spending one UTXO and sending the chain back to yourself again. And that means you're building up a chain. Until they confirm, you now have a chain of unconfirmed transactions. If you split your UTXOs, you take the one UTXO you have and you send yourself 10 payments, you now have 10 UTXOs. Wait for that to confirm. Now you can make 10 transactions. And the way we do the UTXO selection in Money Button is we spend things in chronological order. So you spend the oldest one first. So that way you're spending the confirmed ones. And it turns out that basically it's good to have a large number of these, because if you're actually uploading data, you can only do one at a time. If you want to swipe Money Button, you need a lot of them. So at first we had it where you could go all the way up to 250, and then I tested it and would occasionally run into the error anyway. So I've now noticed that with 750 UTXOs, I don't get this error anymore. So that's how I was able to upload several hundred megabytes of data. I'm just literally swiping Money Button for hours, like 3 days in a row, just uploading data, 100 kilobytes at a time. And at 750 UTXOs, I never encountered a too long mempool error. So I was just able to reliably swipe for like 3 hours or something like that, between yesterday and today, and I didn't encounter any errors at all. And then the other funny thing to note is just that in doing so, you can actually go look at the blockchain and see all the blocks that I created, because I mean, there were other people uploading data too. I wasn't the only person, but because I was uploading so much data, it's mostly me. And then you can see things where like there'll be like a 200 kilobyte block followed by a 25 megabyte block, followed by a 10 megabyte block, followed by another 200 kilobyte block or something like that. So those are my photos, is what those are. And then the other interesting thing is you can tell when some of the mining pools don't mine big blocks. So either they're not mining big blocks, or we're not connected to them or something. So you will see like there's like 25 megabyte block followed by like a 200 kilobyte block followed by another 25 megabyte block. And the block in between would be SV pool does not seem to mine big blocks, or we're not connected to them. And then there's some other pool, at least one of them, that has some random looking gibberish for its name. I have no idea who it is or what that is, but they weren't mining them either. So that's just interesting. So I don't know whether the transactions aren't being relayed or whether they're just not mining these large returns or what the deal is. But that's just interesting. So not everyone's mining them. So you can see my photos and look at my latest. So then the other thing related to this is I'm now putting things on my blog chain, which is my blog on the blockchain. And I'm going to have the longest blog chain, because I'm certainly, in terms of the amount of data, I probably have the longest one. That's many hundreds of megabytes of data. So I'll keep doing it. So I'm sure before too long, I'll have more than a gigabyte of data by myself that I will have uploaded to the blockchain. Okay, then related to that is this idea that it would be nice if you didn't have to just swipe money button over and over and over again by hand. So then the feature that we'll be able to add here, hopefully relatively soon, although we're not working on it at the moment, will be something we call automatic money button, where we already have this auth system that is now documented if you want to know how to use it. But the app will be able to get permission to swipe the button on the user's behalf, which will make a huge difference for things like this. So the service I've been using to upload everything is bico.media. If you go to add.bico.media, that's the service I'm using to swipe money button millions of times. Well, not millions, but a lot, thousands of times. To upload this data, you have to manually swipe it over and over again. So we'll make it so that the app can ask permission to swipe money button on the user's behalf. And then basically you'll be able to upload a photo and just let it go. Or a video or whatever. And so as soon as we have that, then I think it'll be realistic that you could put, say, a movie or something like that on the blockchain, because you can't manually swipe it that many times. It's just too cumbersome. But if it's swiping automatically, then you'll be able to do that, even though it's in 100 kilobyte chunks. Okay, so that's the status of that. Any comments or questions about that before I move on here? Is that data limit with every op return TX or just the bigger ones? I don't know what so there's a 100 kilobyte limit. So what happened recently on Bitcoin SV was shatters just discovered, oh gosh, we could just bump up that limit on the command line. So there's something called the data carrier size that was defaulted to 220 bytes that a number of nodes have now bumped up to 100,000 bytes. Now, anyone who runs a node, you should bump this up by hand. So this is not a default setting. Everyone needs to manually set the data carrier size command line option on your node or in your bitcoin.conf file. So if you set that, you can then accept unconfirmed transactions that have up to a 100 kilobyte op return data size. That's what the limit is. And so some of the nodes do not relay this data, because some of them do not change the default settings. So unless you know what you're doing, basically, and you specifically set that default limit, you won't be relaying or noticing any of these transactions. And I've noticed, like, what's on chain, I thought they were doing this, but I haven't been able to see any of my data show up on what's on chain until it's confirmed. So I'm not sure that they have this set, or maybe they're not connected to the same nodes that we're connected to or something. But they don't show up there. So anyway, that's what the limit is. It is a 100 kilobyte op return limit that everyone needs to set by hand on the command line or in their conf file, and that many but not all of the miners have set. And so then when you upload a 4.5 megabyte photo, that has to be 45 separate chunks, and that's what bico.media does. It will chunk the data for you using a protocol and display it and reassemble it and all that stuff. So I hope that answers that question about what's the data limit there. And then, so are the individual photos stored in multiple transactions? Yes, they are. So for a 4.5 megabyte photo, it's like 50 transactions. So that's why you have to swipe money button 50 times to upload a 4.5 megabyte photo, because it's something slightly less than 100 kilobytes per transaction. And then there's a protocol, so it's just it's based on two things. So it's based on it's called like a BCAT, and I'm sorry, M.B. Wolf. I'm sorry if so M. Wolf, who created ad.bico.media. Please correct me. I don't know if you happen to be on here or something, but I don't know. He just said the protocol was created to create this app. So ad.bico.media implements a protocol that is the B protocol created by Unwriter, but allows them to be concatenated together. So that's what it is. It is multiple different transactions that get concatenated. So you have like a bunch of different chunks that go into individual transactions. And then after you've built those, you have a single concatenation transaction that just has a list of transaction IDs in there. And that's how you can assemble it. Okay. Can you make it possible to use a money button that has been configured as editable? Use the amount as the, okay, great question. This is already on our issues list. So yes, that has nothing to do with data, if I understand your question correctly. But yeah, so we want to make it so that the editable money button can have a default amount, and that would be extremely convenient. That is on our issues list. We just haven't done it yet. So yes, we will do that, and that will be great when we do that. Is the 100 kilobyte a hard limit? No, there's no sense in which this is a hard limit. If a miner wants to mine a larger transaction, it would be valid, but they have to actually mine it. And so I just know that the nodes are relaying, some of them, let's say 50%, are relaying and mining the 100 kilobyte ones. I haven't tried to do bigger than that because I know that this was basically arranged by Shatters. He went and said, hey guys, did you know you can do this? Why don't you bump it up to 100 kilobytes? So all I know is that a bunch of people actually did bother to bump it up to 100 kilobytes. It is not a hard limit. And if every node on the network just bumped it up to 1 megabyte, then all of a sudden we would be able to do 1 megabyte sized op returns. And by the way, people seem to have not noticed, but this makes it radically, radically easier to make large blocks. So when all these people were doing the stress test last fall, one of the things that's hard about the stress test is you have to generate a huge number of transactions. But actually the number of transactions is a lot smaller if you're using op return. So instead of doing a 250 byte transaction, you could do a 100 kilobyte size transaction. And if you can stress test with, you know, just a huge number of transactions, well, then also add in op return. This is how I was personally able to create a block that was 29 megabytes. I mean, if there were like 5 of us doing this at the same time, I'm pretty sure we would get all the way up to 128 megabytes with 5 people. So, and by the way, I think it'd be funny to arrange something like this. So we're going to try and encourage people to do this data, but we could do like a user activated stress test where all we have to do is have a small handful of people upload, say, 10 megabytes of data at the same time, and we could probably generate a maximum size block. We could probably go all the way up to 128 megabytes. So of course it costs money. You'll have to be willing to spend 7 US cents per transaction or whatever. So however, but it's not really that much money. So if you're willing to spend a few dollars on it and a bunch of us do it at the same time, we could probably generate a 120 megabyte block, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so people are excited about that. So we can arrange this in the chat or something like that later and set up like maybe next week we do you know, a user activated stress test. That is a joke, of course, because who is it? I was talking with Brendan on some Telegram group a few months ago, and he was like, there is no scheduled stress test. I was like, well, we'll just have to do a user activated stress test then. And And at the time, I didn't quite realize how easy this would be. But actually, it's much, much, much easier when you're uploading lots of data. So between the last stress test and now, we now have the ability to do 100 kilobyte sized op returns. So that's the difference. And so therefore, I'm pretty sure we could basically easily get up to 128 megabyte size block if we did that. Okay, so I see a bunch of people excited about that. I don't see any new questions though, but that'll be cool. So we can arrange that and see if we can do 128 megabyte size block. Okay, one other thing I wanted to mention. Okay, so another thing was people are talking about Twitter a lot. So I'm very opinionated about this. I'll just say briefly, I exited Twitter in January. So I'm still posting to Twitter. That's because I'm using a tool called Buffer to post, but I refuse to look at it because it's just low quality. And when you think about what we're doing with Bitcoin and MetaNet and all that stuff, I think it really does actually matter when you price information. So Twitter doesn't have a pricing mechanism. So basically what it is whoever gets the most attention is what you see on Twitter. It's not the stuff that's true or meaningful or valuable or substantive or useful. It is only the stuff that gets the most attention. And everyone recognizes this. But what we don't really have is a social network where you actually can see the pricing information in there. But this is basically what we're doing with Bitcoin. So either there'll be one individual app that does this eventually, or there'll be a bunch of them, like Bitstagram or something like that, where, first of all, it costs money to put it on there. It's not very much money, but it's not zero either. And so you think that that's bad because it costs money. But if it's commercialized, well, when I upload an individual 4.5 megabyte photo for $3.50, well, if I'm a professional photographer and I'm selling my photos for $1,000 and I'm using the blockchain to track digital rights, uploading it for $3.50 is a really small cost. So that's actually not expensive. So when we flush out the rest of this infrastructure, where it's not just uploading a photo, but you also have the digital rights management on the blockchain. When you have that, you can start monetizing everything, and we will have the highest quality social network. So all of the stuff that's actually worth money will be on the blockchain because you get all these benefits. You can see when I uploaded my photos from traveling around, well, I have proof that I created those photos. I put myself in some of the photos. They're timestamped on the blockchain. Obviously, I created them and I own them. So I can then sell that data. So we can create monetized information on the blockchain. And basically the only missing pieces now are to actually add in the digital rights management stuff so that I can then sign it so that I say it's me and then create a market where someone can buy it with a transaction. That's like a token. You basically attach like a non-fungible token to the photo and allow it to be, the ownership to be transferred. So I could then take a photo of whatever. I go visit somewhere and I happen to take a photo of some news that's happening. I happen to see something. I traveled, just hypothetically, say I went to Venezuela and took a photo of something that was happening there, and some newsworthy thing, involving the government in Venezuela or something like that. I could post it to the blockchain, sign it that I created it. Then news organizations could see that I created it, see a contract that I created that I'm willing to sell it for some amount of money, buy it from me, and the ownership is automatically transferred to that party. So we're like almost all of the way there. We're just missing the final pieces here of the actual digital rights management. But all the data and all that stuff is already there. So anyway, we'll just make a better Twitter. So all these people are worried about Craig being banned from Twitter or whatever happened. But I mean, just get off of Twitter. Forget about it. We're putting this stuff on the blockchain anyway. You can upload everything. We can already put videos and images, everything that you want to, audio and everything on the blockchain. So we need one or multiple social networks. Bitstagram is a great proof of concept of this basically already. And we need to fill in the rest of the details. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is we are working on an identity system that will be related to this. So because people keep mentioning things like, how do I know who swiped money button so that we can pay them or something like that? Now, first of all, already you can just use the money button's user ID. So either ask them what their user ID is, or when they swipe the button, it passes the user ID back to you in the callback or the webhook. So there is actually an ID system built in already. But the missing piece here is we basically need a user-friendly system that involves public keys, because you basically have to have the ability to sign data. So there needs to be an identity protocol that allows people to use their wallet to not just upload data, but sign it in a standardized way so that there's a shared identity protocol. And again, we're like 90% of the way there already. So this is the next thing we're doing in MoneyButton. The next feature we have will be an identity system that's based on this idea of finding a user-friendly way for users to have a public key. So we're working on this. We're not ready to announce it yet, and we'll hopefully be able to share more information. But I just wanted to say that because people keep asking about it, and I've already said it. And you can read the article I wrote called Domain Names and Email Addresses on the Blockchain, which is what we're basing this on. So the idea will be a naming system that allows people to have a name and a public key. And the idea is that it's not a MoneyButton specific thing. It is a protocol that anybody can do so that you can sign and track data. Now, once we have this, you'll be able to not just sign data, but you could do things like, Joel, I want to send you a message. I could encrypt a message to you, send it to you on the blockchain. I use my wallet, you receive it in your wallet, and so on. So it's everything that you can do, all the stuff that people have been talking about using the blockchain for 10 years, but no one has completed the picture yet. We're almost there. The identity system is like the final technical piece where then we can then just start doing all these things. So that's just a logical next thing for MoneyButton is to flesh out this, because you can already upload data. And so if you can just sign it and have a name and stuff like that, you can start doing everything else like rights management and all those things. Okay, so hopefully we'll have more information to share about that soon. We're working on the software and protocol and all that stuff, and so but just so that you're aware that that's happening, and if we're able to do so, we will announce it well as soon as possible. Okay. Okay, then the only other thought there is that will be related to the onboarding thing, because I've been spending a lot of time, of course, working on and dealing with the onboarding problem. But the identity system is kind of a 50% prerequisite that we'll be using the identity system in some of the onboarding solutions that we have. So then after this exists, it'll basically be a matter of, we'll probably be like 80% focused on onboarding into the indefinite future, because I think onboarding is like it's not trivial. So that will be something we work on for a very long time. But that will be after the identity system. Okay, let's see if there's any. Marketplace for names. So I would just say that so having marketplaces is something you would be able to do with an identity system, right? You could have, so long as we have a protocol that everyone agrees to. If you have things like names and public keys, you can have a marketplace that's fully on-chain. So you can just start publishing stuff. I have this thing for sale in data, in an opportunity, and sign it, and people can buy it from you and transfer ownership in a transaction. Is there a way to create a one-time swipe MoneyButton? Example, put a download code to a game behind a paywall that destroys stuff or is unstable. Okay, so I was talking about this with a few other people. Okay, so first of all, you can do paywalls two different ways that are happening right now. You can do a mostly off-chain paywall with MoneyButton. There are two different ways to do this. You can use the client-side callback, which is extremely easy. So if you're selling something less than $1, the client-side callback is so easy. Do it that way. We have an example of this. People have created a number of different examples, actually. I forget where the resource. I don't think we have it on our documentation, unfortunately, right now, but we'll have that example on our documentation soon. There's a more sophisticated way you can do it with the server-side webhooks. Basically, if you're selling something that's expensive, the client-side webhook isn't secure, but the server-side webhook is secure. So basically, you only reveal the data to them if they make the payment, and you just have to use a server-side webhook for that. You can do it partially on-chain, and so bitpaste.app, does it that way, where there's actually like encrypted data at LibTX, if he or she happens to be listening here. I don't know if they're here, but apparently that's actually how bitpaste already works. There is actually an on-chain paywall where you buy the key to decrypt the data, and so you buy the key from the server, and so that's actually already happening. the final way you can do this is you could imagine, so in Bitcoin is smartly designed compared to, say, Ethereum. The miners do not run everything. You don't actually want the miners to run everything. What you can do is you could have an autonomous agent that manages keys. So instead of having the miners do everything, you could have an agent that pays for its own storage space and computation on servers, and you pay for it to manage keys. And what it can do is, again, it manages itself. So it would seem like it's as magical as Ethereum, where there's no person actually operating it. It would operate itself. But you would be able to, say, blast through a paywall where the agent is what shares the key to you. So you could do it in a way that doesn't rely on like an individual server or something like that, but it wouldn't actually be the miners that share the key to you. So I don't know if that's clear, but the idea is basically, if you put all of the data on the blockchain, well, either it's unencrypted and everyone can see it, in which case you don't really have a secure paywall, or you encrypt it, in which case there's a key somewhere that you have to get to be able to decrypt it. So how do you do that? So the answer is, who has the key and how do they share it to you? And so what I'm saying is the miners aren't the ones who have it. It would be something else. And it can either be a business or one of these autonomous agents that would be able to do something like that. So there are ways to do it. And the simpler versions already exist. And a fully sort of server-based one we have an example of called Markdown Paywall, which is in our documentation. And then you can see bitpace.app or ask LibTX about how to do the server key-based approach where you share a key to decrypt the data. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So that's everything I wanted to talk about. Any comments or questions about any of those things?
I have a question. Following on from what Tone's just said, with a reputation system, with identity coming and such, do you see a future with reputation and trust that businesses or individuals might want to develop? Which can you see a future in Money Button in that area?
Yes, I do. So I'll give you an example of that. So first of all, reputation is kind of a big subject, and it's not something I'm like an expert on, but I do think identity is a prerequisite to actually solving reputation. You have to have some type of identity first to be able to build up a reputation. So yes, we can use that for reputation systems. So some of the ideas that I've discussed with other people are KYC. Like how do we deal with, like, if our users want to buy crypto or something like that, at some point, various things that they're going to want to do involve KYC. And so not everyone necessarily wants to have to accumulate the data from their users. For a lot of reasons, liability of various sorts, either legal liability, like, I'd rather just not have to deal with that, or just dealing with like security liability. Like I don't even want the user's data in a lot of cases, because then we're a target for being hacked and people want to steal the user's shipping address or something like that from us. So imagine once you have identity, if someone has proven that they have done KYC with either a wallet or a service provider of some sort, or perhaps a business whose sole purpose is to do KYC, then they could have knowingly done KYC and then off with other services. So that would be, it's not really reputation, but it's kind of in the same ballpark of kind of attaching your real world identity to that would be KYC. I could imagine, I don't know, eBay rankings or something like that in the form of a protocol. So that would be like a reputation protocol. I could imagine that could exist. You would just have to have a record of basically what people have done and whether it was successful or not, and then track the stuff on the blockchain. And if you basically just put it on the blockchain, you have the records of everything that happened. So you have every single sale and purchase occurring on the blockchain. So you have real data about what actual purchases occurred. And you can see transfers of keys and money occurring on the blockchain. And so you can know whether a purchase was successful. And you can see that this person had such and such number of successful purchases, and then these people rated them and so on. So yeah, you could add a reputation system to all this stuff. As far as how the reputation system would work, though, I don't know. I just know that you need an identity system first to be able to do it. So maybe we can come up with, over time, an answer to that, where you would have reputation presumably in the form of a protocol of some kind that would have to be something agreed to. You could have, it could be literally like eBay, where you just have on a single website, you have your own protocol. So I don't know. I don't have the answer, but yes, you could build a reputation system of some sort using identity.
To ask from Jonathan, his question, he wants to clarify his question. What about the problem of hogging identity handles?
So, okay, I'd rather defer that because I don't want to give a sound because we're gonna announce something related to that in our announcement.
We're going to defer that, everyone. We're going to defer that one, and we are going to move on. I'm just going to say to the listeners, you can't expect all the answers here. There's a lot of things we talk about which we don't talk about on the public monthly chat. What you get from this chat is the tip of the iceberg, and what people are willing, like Ryan and Lorien, are willing to tell you of what they're doing. So yeah, sometimes you will get us, all of us, saying, actually, I'm not going to answer that one. So back to Ryan, if you have any more to tell us.
That's all. I don't see any more questions. So that's all I wanted to talk about. So in a nutshell, so the documentation stuff, please visit, docs.moneybutton.com is where we're putting all of this documentation. And you can find all of the articles and the associated videos. We're making that stuff open source. So basically, if you find errors, please just let us know and we'll fix it. I'd be surprised if other people literally wrote articles for it, but there would be nothing stopping you from doing that if you wanted to do that. But otherwise, we'll just finish filling in the rest of that information. And I guess the most interesting takeaway from this is people seem excited about doing let's just do a test with a few people where we try to fill up a 128 megabyte size block. I think that would be cool. So let's just talk about that on Slack or something and arrange that. And I think it will actually be relatively easy. I think we'll see. But I think if we just have a few of us that actually upload data, it's going to work.
I think
okay, so that's all for me.
We'll create a channel specifically for that, and we'll talk to everyone more in Slack, and we'll drag everyone, all the single channel guests, into that as well. Right, there is one last question. When is identity announcement? Do you want to answer that, or just leave that in there?
ASAP. So I don't want to answer it because it depends on when it's finished and it's ready and all that stuff. But I'll say that it's a high priority for us. It's a prerequisite for many of the things we want to do next. And so ASAP.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. We shall be moving over to Court S, who is going to talk to us about $5 and everything that's been happening there. Hopefully you are with us. I've just unmuted you, Court. Oh no, I've just muted you again. There you go, you're unmuted. Court, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Brilliant, excellent. Over to you.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. And this is the first time I talk about $5 in a video. So I want to cover a bit everything, things that maybe I should have said before, or questions that will answer that are addressed to people who have never used $5 before or have never used Bitcoin before. And then I will talk. Let's categorize it as the past of $5, and then I'll talk about the present a bit, which involves everyone that has used the $5, and then the future, or at least how we plan for the future and what we hope to see in the future in Bitcoin. So speaking of the past of $5, $5 was launched basically almost 6 months ago, but actually the idea was conceived 9 months ago, almost a year ago in April. And fundamentally, we were just looking for a way to increase adoption in Bitcoin, because we saw when I entered this world, like I've known about Bitcoin for a very long time, but I was motivated to enter this world when I saw people trying to push adoption as a currency, of the use of Bitcoin as a currency. So then we saw that there was really no easy way for newcomers to get involved with Bitcoin and to get a first-hand taste of the advantages of Bitcoin. So with that idea in mind, we decided to create a website that uses words that people understand, like $5, like freelance, like make money, sell, buy, have fun, and that at the same time has a hidden incentive in it to actually onboard these people and to turn them into active Bitcoin users. So when you earn, when you are a newcomer and you earn, then you will at some point withdraw your earnings, and then you will be incentivized to actually figure out how Bitcoin works, because it's not rocket science. Of course, you won't have the same understanding of Bitcoin as a writer, Ryan, or somebody else, but what matters to be a user is basic to know how to use it, to how to send, how to receive Bitcoin, to understand why it is, to feel the power, to see how it's universal, etc. So at that time, we saw some other alternatives, like the actual value proposition of $5 compared to alternatives is that not that we are not moderated, like Open Bazaar, for example. We consider lack of moderation actually a disadvantage and a competitive advantage of ours, which is why I think long-term $5 has better chances of succeeding than completely anarchic platforms where services are scattered randomly on the front, on the last page, or based on keywords, etc. But because let's say I'm not going to refer to them as competitors because we're not competitors of Upwork or Fiverr, but the fiat alternatives actually have a limit, have a reach limit, which depends on the method of payment that they use. It is the legacy system. That well, we all know this. It's exclusive, and fees change from country to country. Fees exclude small freelancers, and they tend to incentivize the inclusion only of high-priced freelancers, and this leaves out of the work of the freelance marketplace a lot of small freelancers for whom it would make a big change. It would be important, maybe even more than the high-end ones, to enter this market, to improve their lives and to bring some change. And also these low income and hard to reach freelancers are also one of our main targets as a website. So from the beginning, our main target was to recruit these people that were desperate, that couldn't use any other platform because some of them didn't have a bank account. Others couldn't afford to have a bank account or a Pioneer account or a PayPal account because they couldn't pay the $40 per year fee or all those hidden fees this platform have, etc., and to bring them on $5. And at the same time, we wanted also to create a platform where current enthusiasts can offer services based on their skills at very competitive rates, only to incentivize adoption. Like, for example, an artist can offer a professional logo designer who is into Bitcoin can offer quick logo design for only $5, just to incentivize other people who have never used Bitcoin, to tell them, hey, you can hire me for only $5 if you pay in BSB. And other people like musicians, artists, writers, etc. So this was our initial idea and our expectations, actually. So we were hoping to achieve this. And after 6 months of continuous work and a lot of turbulence, we have come to our present today, where the most surprising aspect of $5 is that our freelancers are 80% non-crypto users. Like a very small percentage of our freelancers are crypto or Bitcoin users. Most of them are people that are just looking to make money online. And this, I think, this is our window of opportunity, because, and which a lot of other businesses, startups, or leaders are, in my opinion, not paying enough attention to, because we are too focused on technology and too focused on doing cool things on Bitcoin, which are without doubt very cool and very important for the future. But at the same time, we are leaving behind. We have a lot of uncaptured potential and opportunities in the field of people who are just looking to make money online, to increase their income potential, to enter new markets, and because they find themselves cornered outside the current high fee system of the legacy payment systems. So in this sense, we have tried as a business, and I think this is also something that sets apart $5 from any other crypto business currently. I mean, any other, I would say anyone, at least within BSB, is that we can market $5 to anyone. You don't have to be a Bitcoin user to come and use $5. Anyone who has something to offer can come on $5 and they can create a listing, and then they can hope to sell. Now, what is determining though, what determines the pace at which $5 expands and grows is the rate at which it is used as a platform. So the value proposition of $5, and this is a clarification that I think is due to our current users, because if you have used $5 today, you have probably encountered a lot of maybe some of them inactive sellers who do not answer your messages, other sellers who promise a lot and they underdeliver, other sellers who you contact and they tell you, can you pay me on PayPal and stuff. This is true. This unfortunately happens on $5, and 20% of all orders that are placed on $5 get canceled because the seller fails to deliver, etc. But what matters is that 80% of these orders, there are a lot of hardworking freelancers hidden in this conglomerate of services, which I'm not saying that which will be discovered in the long term. And the more you use $5, the more we use $5, the more we discover these people, because it's important. And the only way to discover them is by trial and error, you know, but by not giving up and by going from one service provider to the other. And to make sure of this, in our present, we actually consume a lot of resources in moderating our platform, in making sure that only active freelancers come up on top, that only freelancers that, in a sense, keep performing stay on top, because we have had a lot of very interesting freelancers who entered enthusiastically and then gave up after 2-3 weeks because for many reasons. And we to do this requires continuous work, and at the same time, this improves the experience of the buyers, because it makes sure that you as a buyer has higher chances all the time of clicking on a service that will be actually delivered. And at the same time, it incentivizes good sellers to keep performing and to being an active user. And at the same time, this automatically leads to these people entering the Bitcoin economy, to these people becoming actual Bitcoin users. And once these people who had never heard of Bitcoin before, they came on $5 not because of crypto adoption, not because they wanted to change the world, which for God's sake is a very important goal too, you know, to bring transparency, etc. But we cannot sell these values to people who need to make a living. And so $5 in the value chain of Bitcoin, $5 wants to be like a place where people can make a living above all, and can make a living through Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is a hidden mechanism, and they can make a living through Bitcoin, and they use $5 versus another platform, because one might say, like, why should they use $5 when they can go to Fiverr or when they can go to Upwork? Because on $5 fees are much lower, and because on $5 we are using a currency that is the currency of the future. So this is the second hand. The first stimulus, the first value point that a lot of third world freelancers see in $5 are the sorry guys, I'm not reading the chat. So yeah, so the main value proposition is the lower fees is a good selling point that brings a lot of people to $5. For example, only 10%, and we can afford to do this only because we use Bitcoin. So to other investors or to other entrepreneurs, and the beauty of Bitcoin is that there are a lot of serious projects in Bitcoin. The cool thing about Bitcoin though is that you can start really small. You don't have to make a big investment, and you don't need to be a Bitcoin genius or, you know, to have rock star developers to get started with Bitcoin. Although oftentimes in this ecosystem, that's the image everyone wants to portray, that you need genial developers from Ivy League universities to work on your project. If you can really start on a very small project, and you can enjoy a lot of benefits. For example, in our case with $5, we take from every $5 transaction, we take only 50 cents in fee in commission. So this thing is unthinkable with PayPal, because that's exactly how much PayPal would take if we were using PayPal. So if we were using PayPal, out of $5, they would be taking 50 cents. So we would have to squeeze out of the 4.5 our profit, or to cover our operating expenses and actual profit, and the rest then would be paid by the seller, by our user, by our freelancers. So this value proposition is quite solid, and I believe $5 today, our weakness is that we don't have enough traction from the buyer side. We don't have enough buyers, and with buyers, a lot of things improve, because, for example, you ordered the logo on $5 and it wasn't so good. Well, the logo or your portrait was done for $5, right? So you need to manage your expectations in line with what you are paying, but at the same time, consider that this person is working on a marketplace where there is very little buyer traction. So once we create some success stories, like people who say, for example, the top earning freelancer on $5 has made around $150, sorry, more, has made around $250, and the second top earner has made around $150. So this is a lot of money for countries in like Bangladesh, for example, or Pakistan. And we have freelancers from Bangladesh and Pakistan. But these people, when these people stay there, they are basically relying, they are basically investing in their future as freelancers, because they know that on $5 in such a small platform yet, they cannot generate income on a monthly basis or even by trends and stuff. So when other people come, though, if they see these existing freelancers that might not be so good, might not be delivering such excellent work, but in my opinion, they deliver a lot of value for the money they are paid and for how they are paid, because consider that these people take immense risk. They are getting paid in a currency that gets devalued overnight 20%, and these people have to pay bills, etc. So they are taking an immense risk. They are delivering a service, and at the same time, they are sending a signal to outside freelancers that I make money here. So to generate imitation, to inculcate the sense of imitation on visitors, on people, on freelancers who come here just to earn money, the buyer pressure is very important, because the more complete, this is why we put statistics like completed orders, users, sellers, and listing on the front page, because we hope that with time, this will generate a strong recruiting signal. And the cool thing with $5 is that once you convince someone to get to list a service of theirs on $5, you don't have to do anything else to get them on Bitcoin. All you have to do is pay them. All you have to do is pay them $5 to deliver that service, and they automatically become a user.
I'm just going to intercept 1 second. I just wanted to say to people, this is something that I do myself when listening to people speak, is taking notes sometimes. And like listening to Court as well, I'm even like scribbling down a couple of notes. And I hope other people listening to this, even the people here now and the viewers who watch us later, a lot of people say some very good bits. And if you're thinking of actually doing proof of work, making something of yourself, you should be listening and taking notes. Sorry for interrupting. Back to you, Court.
So in this sense, so we are working hard to create buyer pressure. So we as a business, at the end of the day, we are a marketing business. We are not a wallet. We are not an exchange. We are not. So our core value proposition is marketing. What we do, we sell. Our mission, our internal mission, is to sell as many listings as possible, to make these people money, to spread the word about their cool services, to convince you and the others to buy their services, to give them a try and stuff. This is our mission as a business, which also serves our bottom line, that is to generate profit for us. We are very far from being profitable, but still we have to be realistic, and we are hoping to build a business here that can stand on its own 2 feet, instead of having to because and this is also something that is underrated in the ecosystem right now, because I think most businesses rely on pre-launch funding or on funding that is granted to them in very early stages, so they do not really have to go through this phase of financial stress where they have to they have to brainstorm for ideas to generate profit by offering value, and by simplifying their core business as much as possible to make it as sustainable as possible. And in this sense, the ultimate bottom line for us, for people who work at $5, why we work around the clock and stuff, is because We want to sell, and at the same time, we want to serve our existing customers. And we know that it really sucks when you place an order and the seller doesn't answer. When you send him a message and again he doesn't answer. We know that this sucks. So what we do is we increase the chances of a positive experience by continuously moderating the marketplace, by continuously updating how all services are ranked, and making sure that your chances of conducting a successful transaction of $5 get higher and higher as we go, and for every order that is completed, and for every purchase that is made, because after every purchase, regardless of whether it is completed or not, we learn something about the seller. We learn whether the seller delivers, under-delivers, over-delivers, is a hard worker or not, is willing to learn or not, and then we take action. We don't just let it sleep in there. So we are always monitoring everything. And that being said, now in the greater picture of the ecosystem, for us as a business, it's very important, like to see a lot of a high metabolism environment in Bitcoin. In other words, what I call high metabolism is a place where people try to build stuff. Like the internet originally was a high metabolism environment. Everyone would try to build a site, buy a domain, start a blog, start some social networks, start a music website, start a streaming website, sharing files. Unfortunately, on Bitcoin, it's not so easy yet. So it's not so easy for everyone to get started. For example, recently we wanted to add Handcash. Adding Handcash in any other, like if you want to start a blog, you just download WordPress. You don't have to know Java or to know PHP or anything. You just get started. And here to add the Handcash, actually the requisite is relatively high. I know a lot of coders here will make fun, say you are incompetent coders and stuff. No, because we are a real world business, and we are just people, like just entrepreneurs, and we don't have an excellent coder in our team, or at least a Java coder. So we had actually to go and look for another coder to help us, to hire him in the market, etc. But this increases the barrier for entry to a lot of small entrepreneurs who have maybe great ideas, but they are not good coders. So what are we doing to make the life easier for these people to just build their ideas without requiring them to find the best coder in town, or to hire the best coder on Upwork that charges, or in Fiverr, or even on $5 or in Jazz that charges $100. So are we doing this, or we are not actually? I think a lot of businesses in the ecosystem do not understand the importance of being digestible. Like if you want adoption, if you want people to build on your product, you must make it easy to use. And easy means you cannot tell the guy you suck at coding, because it's not a solution. You might feel better and more skilled, but you are not increasing the adoption of your own product. You must make it as easy to adopt as possible, as easy to use as possible. Even someone who doesn't have a coding degree must be able to use it. Just like, for example, I can buy a domain name. I'm not a coder. I've never coded anything in my life, but I can buy a domain name, register it, and close the chapter, and it's done. I don't have to go. I don't have to learn. I don't have to look at 1 million tutorials, etc. So in this sense, we think these barriers to entry are high, and when these barriers will ultimately get lowered, and I think businesses who focus on lowering these barriers, and a great example is Moneybutton. Like, I'm a great fan of Moneybutton because I think it's very competently run from this point of view. Like whoever manages it, obviously Ryan manages it. I mean, it's very good at understanding that it gets priorities right. And for example, it was extremely easy for us to add Moneybutton because it was just a copy paste and to drop a package of code in our website. But anyway, if the easier all these products become, the easier it becomes to build on these products, a lot more people will try to build on Bitcoin, will try to build on these startups and on Bitcoin as well. And in this flow of attempts to build big things, because to make an attempt, often these attempts are high risk. We cannot make it very expensive. Once these become cheaper, then we envision a special place for $5 in all this flow, because people can come to get logos, to get websites, to get illustrations, to get voiceovers, to get video explainers, to make everything, and to make it for them also cheap, because of course these people, whoever comes to build, doesn't want to spend a fortune to try something, to experiment with an idea. So if we want to attract entrepreneurs as an ecosystem, we have to focus on making failure cheap. And $5, we as a website find our fit very well with this into this priority. We prioritize this ourselves. Like in the bigger picture, our mission, while we try to sell, we also try to make it cheaper for people to fail. A lot of startups, for great things to come, a lot of small things have to be tried. People have to try small things over small things, and then one big thing will be built. Like even in the internet, you know, before Facebook, there was MySpace, and a lot of small, medium-sized, and almost big things failed before one really blossomed like Facebook, and the guy became the richest, Zuckerberg became the richest guy in the world. So even on Bitcoin, if we do not make it cheap for people to try, it's very unlikely that big things will be built, because people learn. For example, I learned a lot, but $5 wasn't a cheap project at all. But other people, and at the same time, it was much cheaper than other projects in the ecosystem. But for us to hope to see a high metabolic environment, financial metabolism in Bitcoin is, first of all, to make it cheap for people to build, cheap for people to try and fail if they have to fail, try, fail, rebuild until a healthy ecosystem, a healthy base of businesses, of entrepreneurs is built and is consolidated slowly, and then leads to bigger and bigger things. Because I think also another attitude, and someone brought this up recently, and then we should shy away from trying to participate in philosophical debates, because Bitcoin, there is, I think, very, very little philosophy in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is basically competition, and competition happens on paper, and it's basically called profit loss. And we have to for Bitcoin for our businesses in the first place, and for us to succeed, Bitcoin we must make it easier for people to see what values Bitcoin has to offer. For us to succeed, it's important that these advantages that we call strategy, that we call increased reach, that we call financial freedom, independence. It's important to focus on the bottom line, on the amount, on the potential of these advantages to generate profit, on how much people save. So I'd rather talk of how much you save when you use Bitcoin than of how Bitcoin increases financial freedom that can mean anything really to someone who is uninitiated in this field. Or I would rather say how nobody can ban you from using Bitcoin than say Bitcoin is decentralized, because decentralized doesn't mean much for there. But when you say nobody can ban you, and someone who has been banned from PayPal, whatever, or from Pioneer, or from Cash App, or some other place, hears this, he gets attracted, he gets fascinated, and he wants to enter the ecosystem. So in the end, I think this goes back to how I started this, to go full circle. I think it's important for us to use words that people understand. You know, hashing is important, satoshis are important. I prefer bucks for now. I prefer dollars because people understand it. So I don't have to waste time on that. So hash and all those things are all equally important, of course. But I think if we are going to attract consumers and we are going to attract customers for our businesses, and for example, when $5 wins a customer, everyone has gotten a new customer, because this person will earn. He will withdraw money and he will download either Handcash, either SendB, either another. Then once he downloads that, he will find out about on Handcash or on SendB. He will find out about the ecosystem. He will find out about Keyport. He will find out about MetaNet. He will find out about all the other businesses. Now, the more we focus on making this thing digestible and easy to read and easy to understand, not on a conceptual level, but on a basic financial level, like profit, loss, you save money here. Like that's our value proposition of ever should be how much money you save, how much money you can make, because that's what people understand. Nobody, when you are trying to sell something and you start explaining all the long story of Bitcoin, people start leaving. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody is interested in all of that, because people have lives to carry on and a living to make. And at the same time, I think the last thing is probably a subculture in Bitcoin that was inherited from I don't know where, is the tip culture that I think is really bad for the brand of the ecosystem as well, because people cannot make a living out of tips. You know, it's like, first, tips make sense only if the first layer is there, and the first layer is income earning potential. Tips without income earning potential are nothing, are just a scream of despair, like you are trying to recruit them, but it doesn't change anything. So we need to invest and to work on increasing the capability of people in the ecosystem, or the income earning opportunities of people in the ecosystem. And $5, we at $5 at least focus on this a lot, and we have seen some very reassuring signs. For example, freelancers from Pakistan, a lot have quit because a lot of them couldn't find an easy solution to convert to US dollars. But we also see a considerable amount that keep working and they keep getting paid, and after doing a mistake or two, for example, asking payments in PayPal or asking for direct payments, etc., they learn the rules and they are willing to keep playing within the rules. And this is really reassuring for us, because these people have a great potential, not only to forward our values as a platform, to make cheap, relatively high quality work for people who want to try, for doers, but also they attract other freelancers who, as I said, they see, they scream, they send this signal that you can make money here, and this signal is invaluable. And I think very few people, very few other coins have the premises in place to send this signal, because they are mainly speculative assets. Whereas in Bitcoin, we have this is the great uncaptured opportunity in our space, I think, is that nobody really has focused on promoting this, on promoting and on exploiting this aspect of Bitcoin, its ability to reach hard to reach people, to make them easy to hire, easy to fire, to make it easy. Yeah.
I have a question. As you mentioned Facebook earlier, and as you pointed out, Facebook took years to grow. And at the start, they were very small. And $5, as you said, has only been around 6 months. In a year's time, seeing as you have the market lead, you also have the integration, and as you pointed out, hand cash. You've gone through the difficulties and any difficulties. It's not. You've gone through the effort of integrating hand cash as well, and no one else is even in your market area yet. So when you start absorbing, say, DeviantArt and various other things, which is a huge market, no one's even going to realize what you're doing until it's a bit too late. So anyway, my question is, are you keeping interesting stats and information so that in like a year's time you can, I'm hoping to get you on this obviously quite a bit more, and in a year's time you can actually show people the growth and, you know, tell the story?
Yeah, that's we hope so. We hope that this will be the beginning of a beautiful story to tell. But yeah, we keep all the stats, of course, and actually we check them month by month, because we are run like a business, and we hold each other accountable, and we try to learn month after month. We see the stats, and so yeah, in the long run, we hope to see some very good, some very favorable comparative analysis, like horizontal on the timeline. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Time is soon upon us. Is there any questions for Court? Anyone? I don't think so just yet. Just to let everyone know, as usual, we will be doing an unrecorded bit afterwards, only for a short while. I've got a few things to natter about, so afterwards, do please stick around. Court, do you have anything more to say? Otherwise, I'd like to say something about $5.
Yeah, no, I'm done pretty much. I think I covered all the angles I wanted to cover, because these are a lot of unsaid things, and I'm glad I had the chance to say them personally. So.
It's good to hear them. Definitely good to hear them. $5, I see it as an excellent gateway for people to get into Bitcoin. and learn about Bitcoin. And not, it's something I keep saying to people as well, is that Bitcoin isn't meant to, I mean, a lot of everyone here knows, I'm speaking to the choir here, but this is to the audience. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, when I say Bitcoin, I mean it all. It is the way to get rich isn't by buying and hodling, it's by using and creating and using your own proof of work. As Court is explaining and his customers show, they are working and earning and using the technology, and the fact that it has such a low transaction cost to transfer money and is global and inclusive means that these people from all these other countries can actually earn money. And whereas some people in some countries, it might not be so much, but in other countries, that's food for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not, I mean, it's not just, it's spreading adoption, food for a week, it's helping people. I mean, the technology is there now, as Court is showing, the technology is there now. If someone has a phone, they could draw artwork, they could take a picture, they could sell it on $5. But it's getting the information out there. And we have creators, builders, and teachers, as I've been telling people. But, you know, like Court here, he is a builder and a teacher. And there's many others here, many other speakers we've had, and many more people we will have. But there's also the teachers and the growers, the adoption people who teach people about the businesses like $5. And I would like to say MetaNet ICU, but you know, you've got to learn to get your way here. But I'm sure people listening to this video already are.
Yeah, one quick last message to anyone who is not into Bitcoin yet. Like, I would say to you, like, come build on Bitcoin and start from $5. Like, do your first log on $5, hire your first freelancers on $5, get started from there. It's really cheap and you can get a log done.
Yeah, $5 if you're a creator out there, music, art, animation. I've got a list of things that I need to get done on $5, to be honest. But yeah, seriously, it could be a very good platform. And if you
are getting better and better, and we are focused on getting better and better every day. Like, we work around the clock non-stop, and we are not quitting anytime soon. So
yeah, if you need to get hold of him as well, Twitter, $5.
$5 and, on MetaNet ICU.
Yeah.
And
I will put information in the about on the YouTube, but you guys might need to remind me. But I am going to tie this up now, everyone, on the recording side. It will continue unrecorded. Thank you very much to our speakers. I hope the audience enjoyed. If you want to get in touch, I'm sure you can figure it out. If you can't figure it out, then you better learn how to figure it out. Until next time.